watching what we say, how difficult it is to actually really watch what we say. But James, in the 3rd chapter, talks about something else. He kind of switches gears after he talks about the difficulty of taming our tongues. He talks about wisdom and 2 different kinds of wisdom. And there's wisdom from above, and then there's what he calls worldly wisdom. And reading from James, the 3rd chapter, starting with the 13th verse, it says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." Amen. So, as I said earlier, James talks for a good long time in this chapter about taming our tongues and how difficult it is and how small of a member it is and how much it gets us into trouble. But then he comes into the last few verses and he gives us 3 different perspectives on wisdom. And he describes first the proof of wisdom, and then he talks about false wisdom, and then he finally talks about the essence and source of what is true wisdom. And when we start in verse 13, we look at who is wise and understanding among you, he says. By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. So James is expressing something that we all intuitively understand. Some of us gain a tremendous amount of knowledge. We have degrees that go across our walls. We've taken courses upon courses. We've read self-help books. We take online courses. We do all kinds of stuff. We consume knowledge. We consume it and consume it and consume it. But he says the person that is wise knows how to take that knowledge and put it into practical use. I don't know if you've ever had that. I realized that I was becoming like one of those online class junkies. Somebody smiling. I know there's a few people smiling because we've all done this. You decide, oh, this looks like a great course. I can learn how to invest, or I can learn how to be the greatest person ever. I could write a novel tomorrow. And then you get through like a quarter of the course. And you go, this course is really long. I don't know if I want to really do this. Or some of us, we're determined, right? We go through the whole entire course. And then we never write the novel. We don't ever start an investment account. We don't do any of the things that are suggested that we should do in the course. And we wonder why we're in the same place. And then we see the next thing and we go, that looks good. I'm going to be a real estate mogul. I can do this. Clearly I have insomnia, so I've watched a lot of these things already on TV. But if you don't have this, you probably not have noticed that now they come online, so they pop up, and you say, I'm going to do it. James says, this is a person that gets knowledge, doesn't ever put it into practice. Knowing how to apply knowledge in a practical way is where you meet wisdom. You see, wisdom, you just don't get it. You can't just pick up a book and read about wisdom. Yeah, that's great. You got a lot of knowledge about it, but the rubber hits the road when you actually have to put it into practice in your life. And that's the hard part. That's the part that we have difficulty with. And James says, by this person's good conduct, he will show his works in the meekness of wisdom. You will see the results in what it is that the person does or doesn't do. He also asserts that true wisdom is something that is not acquired by all those online classes that I was talking about, or those programs that I've all done, will be all done. It's acquired by God. You see, the source of true wisdom is God. And just in case you may not have realized that, John writes about this. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That word actually is logos, which is logic and reason. It's not just words. It's all the reason and logic that we have. It all begins with God. So showing this type of wisdom shows what your faith is like. So in other words, because I'm a preacher, I should practice what I preach. But then again, if you say that you're a Christian, you should also practice what you preach. That's part of what James is saying in a nutshell. If you're saying and professing all these wonderful things, and you know them, have you ever met someone like that? I met somebody like that, quote everything in the Bible back and forth. But his life didn't reflect anything that he was quoting. I said to him one day, I said, wow, that's great that you were able to quote all this stuff. But what's going on? He said, well, I don't know. You see, just simply having the knowledge in your head doesn't really work. God's wisdom goes beyond the understanding of the world's wisdom. And when you know that you have it in your heart, it starts to reflect in all the things that you say, all the things that you do, how you respond to what comes at you. Because life is 10% what is going on to you, and 90% how you react to it. That wasn't my quote. Someone else quoted that. That was a great quote from someone else. But the reality is, it's true. All the things that happen, we can look at every negative thing and we can figure out a way where it's miserable. And that's what James was talking about earlier. That's how our tongue gets us in trouble. We start talking about things, and talking about people, and talking about the situations that we're in, and it gets us in trouble.